Hey, everybody, welcome to the work session for the Board of Mayor and Alderman for October the 8th, 2024. We're going to start out by a roll call. And among all my papers, Alderman Barnhill.
Here.
Alderman Blanton. Here. Alderman Caesar.
Here.
Alderman Peterson.
Here.
Alderman Berger.
Present.
Alderman Brown. Vice Mayor Brown. Don't see him. Alderman Potts.
Present.
Alderman Baggett. And the mayor's here. Okey doke. The next item on the agenda is a opportunity for citizens to make comments for items that are not listed on this agenda. And I have speaker cards, but they're for items on the agenda, so we'll keep moving along. We'll go to item number 1, which is update and discussion of progress on development of Bousquet Place, also known as the Hill property.
I'll just say a couple words to kick this off. As you know, a few years ago, we entered into a letter of intent working with an LLC that had been formed with a group of local organizations, Franklin Housing Authority, Community Housing Partnership, Habitat for Humanity, and Hard Bargain Association related to the redevelopment of this site for affordable and workforce housing. We had within that some specific dates that were identified. Those dates have all passed, but the idea was that we wanted to have a specific pro forma and specific plan of how we might move forward. We wanted to provide the opportunity for that partnership to share that with us tonight in terms of where they are and what their requests are to be able to move forward with the project. So that's our purpose tonight. I'll let Tom maybe add some other context to this, and then Derwin Jackson from the Franklin Housing Authority is here to talk to you tonight as well. So thank you.
Good evening. Thank you, Eric. As Eric said, we've been here for this discussion a few times, and the last time we were here, essentially a shortfall was identified in funding for the project. Where we are now, the LLC partnership did some work on their development plan, achieved a point with the development plan where they think addressing all the physical concerns and challenges of the property, that they think they have a workable development plan to go forward, but there were still the shortfalls in the funding. So I want to talk to you a little bit about that, and then give Derwin, as a representative of the LLC here, to talk to you about where they are and things they've done and try to achieve that. The last time we were here, there was essentially a request for more information from the board about the details of the funding gap. So the partnership provided us their pro forma. As you can see at the top, the expected revenue from sales of units, and then kind of a breakdown of their costs for construction of the units. We don't need to go in details there. Just go to the bottom line, breaking down the expected revenues and cost. They have a shortfall of, as you can see, of over $5 million still in funding for the project. This is for 33 units on the property. I'll just click on to the next step here. So the question is bridging the gap, and that's where the LLC has been working for a while. And I will essentially turn it over to Derwin, and you can talk about the work they've done in terms of funding and any questions that you may have to how we might cover that.
Good evening, and thank you for having us here again tonight, and glad to see all of you. We've been working on this. We haven't stopped working on it, and the thing about it, I would just always say this is just again, when this project was brought to me by Brent years ago, that we the four of us at the time, we kind of changed some of the players, but the same goal that we have is just to make this work, to be affordable housing, that we want to be a part of this, and we have not stopped working on this. Now, we have probably put in about $150,000 so far, getting the plans and specs together with architects, so we have not stopped. Part of the delay was also trying to find emergency access off of the property. We finally got that worked out after working with the city and looking at the best access to get, and with the city really to try to find the emergency access to get off the property. So that been a lot of things that we worked on for several months to get that done. But I feel that And we're still, part of, Pinnacle Bank has committed to providing a construction loan for this project. And so they're pretty much going to do 90% of the construction costs for it. And they're giving us a term sheet for it. So they're committed to work with us, to partner with us to do it. And we also have the Housing Fund out of Nashville who has committed to us to buy at least 10 of the houses. So up front, they will buy 10 of them. They will just put that probably about $3.3 million up front for us to help in the construction costs of it. So that will save us money, definitely on the construction interest of it. But they've committed, and they may do more as we continue to look at it. But definitely, they said they can purchase 10 of them up front from us. And so, I feel we're looking at building 33 homes, 10 of them being affordable, other 23 being workforce. And I feel that we're working on the gap as well. But part of this is to bring to you to see, hey, this is where we are. If we had to try to start today, this is what it would take us to help fill that gap. I feel that we can find some place to do it. We're going to seek funding from the Federal Home Loan Bank. We're going to seek funding from the home funds that we know that we're going to look. We don't have it, so I can't say we got it till we get it. But we haven't stopped looking for funding also that I feel we're going to be able to help fill some of this gap. But that's kind of, like I said, we're at a point now that all we have to do is now get the development plan together and signed. But we can't do that until we know we got commitment to do certain things to fill the gap. So, but other than that, we are at a place, with the drawings, with submitting to the city to begin. We're at a place now that we're bringing it back to you to say this is where we are, and we feel that we're in line. Now, I'm here today by myself, but I want you to know we're still there. We're still here. A couple of them had spring break, had to go on vacation, but just so you know that we're all still working together on this, and so that is a quick summary of where we are. And looking at this, right now we're looking at providing subsidy probably about $150,000 per unit that we're asking the city. Yeah, and so I'm hoping to even break that to get that lower. But just say if it was today, that's what we're asking. Is about $150,000 per unit to get the units down to be affordable. And one thing that the housing fund is going to bring to those 10 units they're buying, because we still feel there may be some people in that 80% or low that can't afford a $330,000 house. Well, the housing fund is going to be able to assist with the soft second, so that house instead of being $330,000 probably be about $240,000 for at least 10 or 12 people. So I feel there's some things out there that we're going to continue to work on to find those other options, and I feel that we can do that. I feel good about the project. I'm committed to it. We're committed to it, and we just we told the city, and this has always been a good partnership, and so we know that, but we're just letting you know we've been up front with you. This is where we are, and we need your help to make it happen.
Alderman Blanton.
So, Darwin, explain to me them purchasing these 10 homes. How does that, I understand how it helps your bottom line, but what does it do for the proposed homeowners? Do they become rentals, or do they become where they flip them to a different owner?
No.
Explain how that works.
The home housing fund, they have a program called shared equity. And so what they do is come in, they'll put in $75,000 to $100,000 and partner with the homeowner, so they'll share their equity. So they have a scale after 5 years, after 10 years, after 15. At some point, if the homeowner stays there, that they get all the equity. So that's how they get it down. So instead of being a $330,000 house, it'll be a $250,000 house where they can afford it, but they have to share the equity. So if they try to, and the same thing would be as our program, they can't just flip it, but that's just part of helping them be able to afford it, because you may have some people at 80% can't afford a $330,000 house. But this is a way to try to get more people who want to be homeowners to help them become homeowners.
Well, and just a comment, if I may, and then I'll be done. I've always been a supporter of this project. I think that's pretty obvious. I will say it's a little bit shocking to see a 5.1 ask from us to get it done. I know things are not as cheap as they were when we started, but I would have to think really hard about how the fairness of this. It's a really $5 million is not chump change. And so it's setting a precedent, and I think we do want to be good partners. I think that's obvious. And our CGDB funds have been the way we've been able to help the most. This is way beyond that. And so I'm not saying, oh, no. I'm just like, oh, wow, this is going to take a minute to figure out how you answer that question. Sorry.
Alderman Caesar.
Thank you. Appreciate you guys bringing this forward. Share a similar concern with Brandy, not only on being a champion for more affordable and workforce housing in our community, but how do we do it in a way that's sustainable? And I guess my question, you did a great job, Derwin. Thank you for answering how the shared equity component works. I guess my question is, if a new homeowner gets into this house at 330 and then in 2 years sells it, I understand whatever equity accrues, there's a percentage that they get to reap. But what is in place downstream to keep that $330,000 house from becoming a $500,000 house that is now unattainable to that next generation? So I see where we could help this first generation, but I'm also considering, let's not let this become a high rent district after, number one gets in.
And that's something we addressed in the original request for proposals and the letter of intent, and will be carried into the development agreement. We have deed restrictions in place, either for 30 years or 50 years, that they would just continue. So anytime the unit is sold, it would still be sold at an affordable price to an eligible household at the time that it's sold. That's the way it's set up right now. They would continue.
Thank you for the additional color there. I share one final comment, I guess, is the administration fee at 9% is 3 times the real estate commission fees, and nobody expects anyone to work for free here. I wonder, is there an opportunity there for improvement? $156,000 subsidy per home is a pretty big chunk, and you called it out, Derwin. I think the opportunity here is for us to fix this. This is important to us in our city. I would just ask, is there anything else that the city has offered this development that maybe isn't recognized on the balance sheet that's put forward?
Well, I think we've identified what is readily available to us. One of the components that has shifted over time, there had been the opportunity for the county to participate with some ARPA funds, and that has dropped off. So I'd like to see what our opportunity is to maybe talk to the county further to see if there's another path for them to participate. I think that's a timing issue for them, and some in terms of how they want to expend those dollars. But I think there's more work to be done here. I think we've put on there what we can reasonably project in terms of CDBG funds, the opportunity to waive or replace fees, and the components that are in there now that help, along with the additional request. I think you've touched on a couple things that I would ask about as well in terms of that administrative fee, some other things of how this is structured, and are there other partners that can come to the table that help with this? Those to me are still open questions that I would continue to push on. This is not at a place where I would make a recommendation to you. I think this is a check-in about where we are so that everybody knows the status. But I think there's more work to be done, and to try to refine this and what are the appropriate roles for the city versus are there other partners that could come to the table. And I know the team's been working on that, but I think that's still worth more effort and focus.
Alderman Potts, then I'll take Alderman Bagley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I want to thank everybody that's involved in doing this and serving in the Housing Commission. I know this is something that we're always talking about, trying to move it forward in a positive way. as I look at this, and it pains me a little bit to even present this, because I agree with what Eric said. There's a lot of work to be done. There's a lot of resources that need to be revisited right now. But I would also challenge us to look at a phased-in approach for the 33 units. And the reason I say that is at $13 million right now, if our shortfall, our gap is $5.1 million, if we had a phased-in approach and we're able to hit that mark where we eliminate the $5.1 million that's the gap, and we can go ahead and move forward with phase one and then look at here's what phase two regarding the units. And again, I would ask us, and I'm not going to do the math right here, but I would ask us to possibly phase those in by reducing the workforce and affordable by, whatever the number, the balanced number is right now. Right now, there's 23 workforce and 10 affordable. Is how we look at that to see if there's a phase-in option. And again, I want the whole project moving forward as is, but after we exhaust all measures, I'd like to know what that is.
Alderman Baggett.
Are these City of Franklin fees the current road impact fees or the new ones, the $899,000?
That's based on current fees.
Current fees.
So, yeah, so what's any fee adjustments that happen between now and when they're moving forward, that would be additional.
I'd love to know what the new impact fees on this would be. Yeah,
Yeah, we'd be interested to know that too.
I believe,
that's fair.
honestly, staff has actually worked on that, but I didn't want to share it.
Well, now that you mentioned it, could you give a ball?
Well, we don't have direction on how you want to do the fees
Understood,
yet. So, no, we don't know that.
Well, we know what the fully
A fully implemented number we
we
can
know
give
the
you,
fully
but yeah,
implemented.
yeah.
Well, first of all, good evening. I was going to add to that the ordinance for an entity that creates a deed-restricted affordable home does provide
Yes.
for the ability for them to ask the city for that reimbursement.
100%.
So whether the fee is now or
I
later.
understand that. I think the reason I asked that question is because I think this is a really good learning opportunity for us in the city. And I think we have learned. I mean, I think the city is, and our housing partners, I think a couple times have said, well, why can't we get 40 units on here? And maybe that would make the $5 million less of a gap because you're able to sell more. Your sunk cost, we go back to our planning documents and we want to build high quality neighborhoods and all the rest, developments. And when I know there could be more than 30 units there. And most developers would have come in asking for 50 and they probably would have gotten 40 or something. I'm just throwing numbers out there, but that's how it works. We've done this and tried to follow our rules, and we have followed our rules, and we can see exactly how the math works. So if you ever lay up at night and wonder why we don't have affordable housing in Franklin, like this is a case example. This is exactly why we don't have affordable housing in Franklin. And so what are the levers that we as a city can do to make this make sense without coming to us for $5 million? I mean, I think that is an existential question for us. We can hear all the campaigns and of people running for alderman and all these other things that want more affordable housing. That's great. But reality is we have levers within our control, within the city of Franklin, within our planning documents, that actually could help make this more affordable. Because they're getting land for $479,000. The land's probably worth $2.5–3 million now. Now, it's not possible. There's no private developer that would ever do this. It's not possible. That's why we don't have affordable for sale housing in Franklin. So until we admit that this is the issue, everything else is just kind of like hot air. And so I'm not love you guys, but I think we have a better way. And I think we have this is a crucible for us to be able to actually make some movement in solving this issue. It's going to take people rethinking how we look at some of our planning. It's going to take rethinking how we look at some of our other things. But I think I just don't. And by the way, how many affordable units have you broken ground on the last 3 years? A lot. And just was at one in Cool Springs, another couple hundred units. We didn't spend $5 million on it. Now they were for rent.
Yeah, rent versus
very
ownership is a
different. I
big,
understand.
big factor here.
We gotta
Yep.
we gotta attack it from both directions. But I think that this I think we're actually moving in the right direction as far as maybe being able to actually solve some structural problems that are keeping maybe the private development world and private with public partnerships to get actual affordable for sale housing done. This number is insurmountable for this to be an actual effective solution for our affordable. 33 units is going to be great for 33 families, maybe 60, maybe 80, maybe 100, maybe 200 over the next 50 years. That's fantastic. I'm not discounting that. But we got to figure out how to make this sustainable for the entire community for a long period of time. And it's not this number, in my opinion, but I still think we can get closer to a more reasonable response.
Alderman Barnhill.
When you do this day in and day out, and I guess what I have a problem with is we hardly ever see you here. But now that the city is involved and you're involved and other organizations, you're here and you're $5,161,000 short. If you were building this, if you were doing this, can you wipe out that $5,161,000? Huh?
Again, there's a big difference. One thing, this is home ownership and not
Okay.
rental. And another thing with my projects that helps us, that I couldn't do it, is the private equity that I do get with the tax credits. Without that, building affordable units, even rental for us, we couldn't do it. But because of the private equity, that investors are willing to come in and buy the tax credits, that's how we do it. And we still have gaps, those gaps
Still
the
have
city helps
gaps.
us with, but not this big. But that's part of the reason why it's not.
But what you've done over the last 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years has been really nice. And I put the really nice on it. Anywhere you've built, anywhere you've had anything to do with, it's been really nice. I can't say that I will say it. Very disappointed in $5,161,000 showing up here when we've already basically given you a piece of property or someone a piece of property that is Alderman Bagley said. The appraisal of Alderman Bagley, before we put the restrictions on it, 3 or 4, 5 years ago, was over $2 million. Then when we restricted it, it kept anybody from being interested in it. Then the value of the property itself came down, and I think it was 1.3 or 7 or something like that. But so it's already been up over 2, and now it's back, and we're still at $480,000 on that. Yeah, I guess I think I said the last time I need to kind of dissolve this a little bit.
I get it.
Yeah.
Trust me, it pained me a little bit to come before you tonight.
It's not, but that's not your fault, Derwin.
No, no, I'm not.
There's a lot of external. There's a lot of external factors.
I've never
We understand that.
indicated it was your fault. Yeah.
Alderman Berger.
Where did these restrictions come from? Why did we put restrictions on this property? What was the purpose and the thought behind that?
Well, when you put it out, when the city put it out, we put it out as a home ownership. And this general concept was there in terms of number of units, but that we did leave some flexibility for number of units. But the home ownership piece, I think, is the biggest factor in what drives this. In terms of, it doesn't have some of the options and tools that Derwin talked about related to when you do a rental and some of those other partnerships that exist. So that had been the focus on owner-occupied homes. And obviously, you can make a different direction or a different blend.
I was thinking back and can't remember all of it, but I thought at one time we had discussed for sale townhomes up there. And that would have gotten us a lot more units. So why didn't you have
Actually,
that?
well, and back to the
can't
original,
remember why we-
back to the original request for proposals, part of the guidelines, the guidance for the project was for it to be designed kind of as what Alderman Baggett was referring to, in accordance with our current adopted zoning ordinance and other code requirements with no or minimal requests for modifications of standards. And actually, the drifting away from the townhouses, some of those units are actually stacked flats, which enable to actually get more dwelling units. And the stacked flats enable them to get more dwelling units than straight townhouse product would have.
So we have no big houses up there.
Correct.
And if big houses or townhomes, would that have given us more units? Because I'm just thinking of the ones on Turning Wheel Lane, there's quite a few units there.
And so what you have in the development plan as it stands is actually a mix of the big houses and also townhouses. So there again, for some diversity integration of the design, which there again is an aspect of things we're looking for in our designs also.
So not across the board big houses. Well, maybe we change that.
Well, is Turning Wheel rental?
Yeah.
It is, isn't it?
No, they're,
All of them?
They're all for sale. Yeah. Turning Wheel has the big houses, they're all for sale.
Okay.
There's 1, 2, trying to think, 1, 2, 3, 4 units. 4 units per building. Yeah.
I've got a couple of quick questions,
Withdraw,
and you can
withdraw.
get back with me on them. First of all, you said that Pinnacle was doing 90% of the mortgage. Is that 90% of the 18 million? Is that 90% of 13 million on the construction loan?
Well, I think I looked at the term sheet before I left. I believe the term sheet actually is probably 100%. I think Susan can help me, but I think they're saying they're going to give us at least $13.4 million.
How much?
I think 13.4 million on the construction, which is pretty much 100% of the construction cost as is. But the other side of it is, if we get the 3.3 million from the housing fund, then that's going to help us on our construction interest. So I feel that there are going to be some things we can do to get into the 5 million. And the one thing I would just say this, and you mentioned the administrative fee, that you know, when we came to this, and again, I would go, and I feel that we're gonna look at that. I don't feel we can do something with that. But our goal was simply that the four of us, and it wasn't the original four of us, but the original four of us is, and I think that's the same thing we have today, that we're not in it to make any money. Our main deal was we didn't want it to cost us anything other than our time. And so I think that's still where we are. You know, we really basically, the only thing that's gonna really, we're saying that we're in it, only thing's gonna cost us basically is our time. And so definitely anything that we can come off of that with, I believe we will, without a doubt. Because at the end of the day, I think we want to see it happen in Hard Bargain, because again, none of the nonprofits, including us, the Housing Authority, we just don't want to be out of any money with it, like, again, other than our time. So I really believe I know that we can come down, I believe we can, less than that. I'm just bringing to you tonight, this is where we were, but I really feel that we're going to come up at least $1 million, if not plus.
couple more things.
And so then we'll see where we are, see what the city can do to help us at that point. But that's
I've got a
definitely that's
couple
where we
more
are. Okay.
comments for you. And these are just comments, so I don't really expect an answer right this second. But the fact that it's $200 a square foot, 45,653 square feet, that's $9.1 million. So $9 million just to get it so that you can build the units. That's a red flag to me, or a concern. And the other question I would ask you to think about, with that much of a stipend from the city of Franklin, over $150,000 per unit, is that $150,000 better used somewhere else in our community to leverage more opportunity for affordable and workforce? So those are my comments and questions. So can we move on? Okay. Thank you, Derwin. Thank you, Derek. Next is Amendment 1 to City of Franklin Contract 2024-0092, an agreement and memorandum of understanding among the City of Franklin, the Battlefield Franklin Trust, and Franklin's Charge, Inc.
This is really straightforward. And this is on both agendas tonight. This just establishes an updated payment schedule for the property we agreed to purchase and are working on to both expand Roper's Knob and enhance access there, as well as adding to our Battlefield Park area. So this just refines that a little bit and aligns better, and actually helps the city hold on to some dollars and earn some interest a little longer before we make some payments.
Can I just say one thing? For anybody listening, we are not building, we are not allowing building to happen on Roper's Knob.
No, this is a great opportunity to provide public access to Roper's
Oh, I
Knob, which
know.
is a wonderful
And
opportunity.
that's my point, exactly, because somebody said to me the other day, why is the city allowing development to happen up on Roper's Knob? Yes, we are not, we're trying to get access so people can actually go up there and enjoy it.
Yep.
So I just wanted to make that clear, in case anybody's listening.
Well, and the combination of the city and state already own Roper's Knob. This just is adjoining property that will enhance access. It's a really exciting opportunity, and look forward to moving this
Yeah,
forward.
it's protected historic area.
And then item 3 is contract number 2024-0188 with Short Properties, EP for Parkland Impact Fee and Construction Agreement for Armstead PUD.
Jump in. We have just some updates on this.
Good evening. This is it's 837 dwelling units. It's 3.6 million in a Parkland impact fees. What they have planned are public trails, pedestrian bridges, demonstration gardens, playgrounds, a farm park, and also private amenities such as pools for the multifamily areas. And so they are eligible for an offset of 75%, which is over 2.7 million. So recommend approval.
Yeah, and this aligns it with the development plan approval that's coming through the process now.
Yes, sir.
Item number 4 is Resolution 2024-81, amending the Haven at Cool Springs PUD subdivision to extend the vested rights for the property located north of Cool Springs Boulevard, east of McHatcher Parkway, located at 151 Cool Springs Boulevard. Established a public hearing November 12th. Joey?
Yes, thank you. So this is a pretty straightforward vesting extension for the Haven at Cool Springs PUD subdivision, which previously approved entitlements of approximately 300 multifamily residential units, as well as 8,595 square feet of non-residential space. So overall, the biggest kind of things to note are if this were to lose its vesting and a new plan would be required, then that new plan would be also required to extend the fourth leg of the Windcross Cool Springs Boulevard intersection, as well as the cross connections to those parcels on that northern side of the Cool Springs Boulevard. Also, there has been a change to Envision Franklin for this area that recommends buildings no taller than 4 stories. Currently, this is approved for 6 stories, so any new plan would have to go through that process again, as well as we are updating our zoning ordinance to add the RC4 district that would limit maximum height to 4 stories. So happy to answer any questions.
Item 5. Go ahead.
I think I want to be careful not to, because there are a number of extensions that have come across in front of this board, and there are some even later this evening. And I want to be careful for developers not to assume that we'll just rubber stamp an extension. Generally speaking, we know that there are external forces that impact the ability of a project to come to fruition under the time allotted, one of which is example in this financing. And perhaps financing gets better in 2 years, maybe not. And at that point, maybe they come back and say financing is still a problem and they ask for another extension. So I'm hesitant to extend it exclusively because of some external market forces. I would be more open to the idea of extending this if Envision Franklin had not shifted dramatically some of the guidance in this particular area, because we have an opportunity to adhere to some of the guidance that was set forth through the Envision Franklin process. And it makes me have a little bit of hesitation and a little bit of heartburn when we think about an area that's going to be markedly changed because of this development that has not committed to and not fulfilled the requirements to adhere to the old rules, and now we have new rules that we're effectively going to be voting against. So those are, I don't necessarily need a response from the city. I just wanted to share my opinions on this particular project and the vesting extension request.
Alderman Baggett?
Now, remind me we just had a wonderful presentation by Amy on this, but remind me the language that the state law says that we have, or am I putting you too much on the spot?
I will admit Amy is the expert, in-house expert on that, so the specific language I'd have to look up.
Community.
I think it's largely in the recommendation, which is
What
the
is-
board gets to determine if this is in the best interest of the community.
what-
Yes,
It's a
staff-
very broad terminology, and it's not well defined.
And staff is not giving a recommendation, it's just presenting the various kind of the options and also what could change should the plan lose its vesting.
In hearkening back a little bit to Amy's presentation to you, we did identify, we do hold it up to the Envision Franklin plan and say, would this be approved today, or would this be consistent today? And it is not. And that's one of the things that I think we highlighted there that is an important consideration. But the guidance is very unclear. It's very minimal in terms of what the state law allows. It's kind of, it provides some latitude for you all to determine what you think that is, but we want to give you a full review of how it compares to the standards that exist today.
There's only been, I think, a couple of these where y'all have answered that does not comply with our plans. I think maybe Wood Duck Court was one, and it didn't, but it was you all explained that in the memo, and I think this one is a little bit more significant so I think it is a bit different than the others. And that Envision Franklin process was not just us. First of all, it's not our document, but it was a lot of public input. So it wasn't arbitrary. It wasn't some sort of, we just woke up one day and didn't think this was a good thing for the area. It was public input specifically through that process, and that's the piece that now doesn't fit. And so the public input piece is, for me, what makes this different. We have had that public input process over the last year and a half, and that's the thing that it doesn't comply with. So I just wanted to point that out. And also that we were not involved in work sessions on this project when it started. We were not involved in the first reading on this project when it started. We were elected and we were sworn in, and then we got to hear the public hearing on this, our first meeting. So we were not even, some of us, the newly elected in 2021, were not involved in that entire process either.
I've got Alderman Potts, and I'll go to Alderman Peters.
So when I was preparing for tonight's meeting, and I read this at least 3, if not 4 different times, and each time I read it, I thought back to, I think, either sitting here or sitting in the chair, and I was adamant, and I said, we got it wrong on Envision Franklin previously, that we allowed R6 all the way up to Roper's Knob. And I agree with what Alderman Baggett just said. When we came in as newly sworn in, I had heartburn over this, and I still have heartburn over this. And I have to say, I think that we have done our due diligence as city staff, as planning commission, as BOMA, everybody that's been involved, that this may be an opportunity for us to actually follow what we wanted to do and what all of our citizens said that they wanted to do as well. So, with what Alderman Caesar said, this is not a rubber stamp. We have purpose, we have meaning in what we're trying to move forward here. So, as this moves forward to us, I will give it great consideration as to whether or not that I will extend any vesting at all.
Alderman Peterson.
Well, first of all, I don't know that it's shown today, but if you look at the next map on this, or maybe the one before that, half of this is in the floodplain. It's either in the floodway or it's in the flood fringe. And they had made plans to make a path, I believe, through the flood fringe there, and it was going to hook on to some other parts of it. But that is one thing that has not been discussed at all. Although, you know, if you're going to have the property and get the part of it that is good, I think. But it does also mean that the other aspects of it are, you know, if they're going to build things on it, would probably be going to build as much as they could on those parts of it. But the other thing is now, remember, since then, the things that are right on the corner of Mac Hatcher and Cool Springs here, you know, has now pushed back. I mean, not what I'm going to say. Wait, they've cut back on the number of units and the heights and all those things that they had planned for it. So I think the idea now appears to be that it's not going to be as stacked up and busy as we had thought this was going to be some time ago.
And just for clarification, what was approved, there's no building in the floodway or the floodplain.
Exactly.
That was all to our standards. So any new plan would have to go through that whole process again. I'm not sure if those lines have changed since the latest FEMA maps have come through. And the plan or the project at 101 Cool Springs there on the corner, that is still yet to be fully approved. So just want to clarify that.
I wish we could bring up the thing that shows the floodplain on there, though. I mean, it's one of our, is it the third?
Who else wanted to speak? Anybody else? We'll keep moving along. Item 5, Resolution 2024-82, initiating the annexation process and draft plan of services for the possible annexation of 17.4 acres located north of Clovercroft Road, west of John Williams Road at 4038, portion of 4040 Clovercroft Road.
Thank you. Okay, this property is, as you said, at 4038 and a portion of 4040 Clovercroft. 4038 is currently vacant and owned by Thales Academy, while Franklin Christian Church is located at 4040 Clovercroft and anticipates selling a portion of their property to the applicant who's requesting it as part of the annexation into the city. These properties are non-contiguous to the city limits, but they are within the city's urban growth boundary. The properties are within mixed residential design concept as defined by Envision Franklin. And Envision Franklin states that mixed residential design concept contains residential neighborhoods with a combination of single-family dwellings, duplexes, and townhomes. The defined character across this design concept may vary by neighborhoods, but new development should transition from existing development patterns into adjacent neighborhoods. It's the intention of the applicant to develop approximately 10 single-family homes using the land at 4038 and a portion of 4040. These properties were brought forward for an annexation initiation in December of 2023. And the annexation initiation was not approved by the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. 4038 Clovercroft was granted sewer availability for one single family unit equivalent in 2020, contingent on a signed and recorded annexation agreement that's now expired. There's also an annexation agreement with the property located at 4040 Clovercroft Road. If the developer would like to include a portion of the church property onto their development at 4038, staff would recommend that the entire parcel, inclusive of the church, be annexed into the city and zoned as CI, civic institutional, which is fitting of a church. Then, once the annexation has occurred, the church can subdivide under the city regulations, and once subdivided, the new lot could be consolidated into the proposed subdivision of 4038 Clovercroft through a PD. Annexing the entire 4040 Clovercroft property would allow for a more cohesive review of the future proposed development at 4038 and the specified portion of 4040. Especially with regard to access points, traffic circulation, and utilities. Should the Beaumont not wish to proceed with annexing all of 4040 Clovercroft and wishes to only annex the specified portion, the area of land to be included in the annexation must be subdivided prior to annexation to ensure that county standards for the remaining land and associated site plan can still be met for 4040. A draft plan of service was included as an attachment. This plan outlines that the city will serve the property requesting annexation and any additional infrastructure that would be required for the new development. This property is in the Watson Branch Drainage Basin, which is almost entirely composed of city properties. The property is one of the few remaining to be annexed, and as such, this drainage basin was not studied as part of the annexation capability analysis. Staff generally recommends that the properties in this area should be annexed when requested by the property owner to help complete existing voids in the city limit boundaries. The property lies within the Millcrofton Utility District and would need to follow their guidance on extending water infrastructure. Sanitary sewer could be extended across Clovercroft, and these properties include future roadways listed on the major thoroughfare plan. And annexing these properties would continue to complete an area of UGB that's surrounded by existing city limits. With that being said, staff recommends that the Board of Mayor and Aldermen approve Resolution 2024-82.
Okay, if it's okay with the board, Mr. Williams is already standing up, wants to speak. Come on up and sit down and turn the green button on there, Mr. Williams, and we'll give you 2 minutes.
2 minutes. I love this 2-minute round here. All right, first of all, I want to make sure that everybody got a copy, or we sent in the minutes to have the petition that I had signed. I went door to door from Clovercroft at 96 all the way to Oxford Glen. There's not a single person on this road that wants to see this. We have already been crammed in tight enough as it is. It is a dangerous piece of road. There's been multiple times that people have come before you and told you how dangerous this road is. It's also stated in this. We are doing this for the protection of our people, of my community, Mudsink. It is a terrible situation to have to keep coming back to you people and saying, this is the most dangerous road in the county. If it's not the dangerous, it's one of them. Going to all these people from 96 to this road, to the entrance to what's going, there's 22 driveways. 2 from the Gate Church, 2 from Mr. Moody across the hall across the road for his businesses. The Waddies have 3 houses on there, and then the rest are single. Once you go past that, there's 28. Some of these are only 50 feet apart. Some of them, all of them, are basically in a blind spot. When you try to get out, you cannot see what's coming to you. Turn lanes do nothing. That's a parking spot. So we are asking for this not to go any further than this. And I'm doing this for the protection of my neighbors, of the Waddy family, their historic property, that historic cemetery, and their family, and all the families on our road. It's not just for me, it is for everybody on our road. Yes, I know Franklin Special School District services that. A bus comes up our road and picks up kids. That bus has trouble getting in and out because it is a blind spot. We have multiple other things that we could talk about, but here again, we're just tired of having to come back and discuss this every time, because this is just not the thing to be doing. We came to you about the 40 units. That was totally out of line. Could not happen. Granted, I realize that these are less units, but it is still in that line if there's only 50 feet apart between all these different driveways and you're bringing these in. So we're just begging you, drop this. Leave it in the county. If somebody wants to put a house and have another horse farm there, fine. But a lot of these properties, a lot of these people that I went and had
Yes, sir, if you
this
finish up,
signed,
please.
they are in the city limits. They are voters. Other sections may not be, but this.
Yes,
but
sir,
the
if you'll
people-
finish up. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, board. Alderman Berger.
Yep, thank you, Mr. Williams. Yeah, I did get your stuff, I have it, and I read it.
If this does not get annexed into the city, I know that possibility of that being developed in the county, correct? Do you know what the county would allow there? Because I think it's 1 per acre there.
I'm not 100% sure. I do know the applicant is here this evening. He may have some of that information for you if you
Yeah.
don't mind him
I
coming
would-
up to
I'd
the.
Sure,
very
we'd
like to hear
welcome him.
from them, yeah.
Would you like to come up here?
Yeah, I'd like to hear some more information. Good.
Have a seat next to you, no problem.
So while he's getting, see,
Well-
total number of acres, total number of houses.
17.
So it's 17.4 acres, 10 homes.
So can you tell us your name?
Rob Marrero.
Rob Barrera. Can you speak to, and anything you want to say? I mean, you have information our board needs to hear. But if this does not get annexed into the city and you purchased it and put it in the county, have you talked to the county yet about developing that land?
Yes, ma'am. The process started with the county. The county guidelines would require this. The issue is the sewer system. If sewer is available, then there is sewer service available, but it would have to be granted by the city. And if it is not granted by the city, then it falls back to the county guidelines, which would put it on septic. And the land available and the process to do it in that manner would be prohibitive in terms of cost, and just, you might be able to get, I did not do any kind of studies as far as on this piece of property, but I've done several in Williamson County, and septic is it's a very long and very difficult process that likely will yield maybe 2 or 3 building sites at the most on this property. And from a economic standpoint, that it's a no-go for that. So the sewer is the real key issue.
Sure.
And with the sewer being available, then in my opinion, the annexation makes sense because it brings it in all the city services, and it's all very consistent and gets a density that is not, it's not a high density concept that I'm pursuing here.
So how large would these lots be?
They range,
They're different.
they're averaging 0.8 to a little over 1 acre
Per house?
per house.
Okay.
Yeah.
Basically, it is, county is 1 per acre.
That's the
there.
way
Yeah.
that's the way the concept is designed right now.
One of the things that concerns me is that getting developed in the county, then you do have septic, and that would probably, as you said, maybe a no-go. The county, the city allowed the Franklin Christian Church to be built there. Well, they did it in the county, that is still county, but we allowed them to have our city sewer for a little higher cost because they're outside they're in the UGB, but they're outside the city limits. But also, they signed an affidavit that they have to come into the city when we ask them to.
Correct.
So they would annex in. My concern about this area is I know Thales Academy needs to sell that property. And I believe in property rights and people trying to, do something with their land. I understand the church wants to sell a portion of that. How many acres from the church?
7.
7.
Right at 7.
All right, so it's 10 and 7.
It's 7 and some change.
All right. I understand that. And, we've had meetings with the county, and the city is looking at possibly, trying to improve. We've had many conversations with meetings with the county and meetings with ourselves about trying to improve our section of Clovercroft. Right now, there is no long-range plans or no short-term plans for sure for Clovercroft to be enlarged or widened. But there are places that we have to, the county and the city both, we're trying to work together with them. But so far, they are not moving forward on their part, but we are looking at trying to move forward on our part in the near future, whatever that is, how many years,
to take out a curve or two, possibly, we've looked at that, and to maybe put in a little bit more shoulder on the sides in some of the areas, and then repave and restripe and make that road safer on the city portions. We cannot do anything in the county portions.
Right.
So I just want to be clear with the board, understood that we've had a number of meetings right here in this room and a few other places trying to solve this problem. But we're the only ones that can do the city part, and they're the only ones that can do the county part. So the staff has also recommended annexation because we can't annex in that area, in the portion over there, you know, coming around. We are at a disadvantage than if it ever gets developed in the county, and it will remain and eventually end up being a hole in our annexation areas in our city. So those are some of the concerns that I see. I also see very valid points about Clovercroft right now. Absolutely. We have some issues that we've got to solve. The city wants to step up to the plate and do some of those things in our
Get back
areas.
to the initiating
Right.
annexation.
So in order to do that, we have to look at all those aspects to say, do we want to annex it in? So I want the board to understand some of those issues and what we've talked about in the past, but just wanted to share all that with you because it should go into our decision for annexation.
Thank you.
Alderman Potts and then Alderman Peterson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do have a question. I recognize that we are talking about annexation right now, but are there any development plans to provide, as Alderman Berger was talking about, widening that road, providing any of that stretch in front of your property and possibly selling it to the city? Has that been discussed?
That has not been discussed.
Do you mind if I
Yeah,
chime in?
jump in, help me.
So, because this is initiation, we haven't delved into the development plan. I mean, this is to indicate, to give the applicant an indication of whether or not you guys are interested in this, so that he doesn't pour more time or money into something that you may not be interested in. He did provide a concept plan that you guys were provided that shows tentatively how it will be laid out. But staff, engineering staff specifically, will be playing a part if you guys choose to move this forward for a formal annexation. And I am sure that those discussions can be had at that point for more detail.
And the purpose for me asking, I don't know what's on the south side of Clovercroft across from that property. So I was just looking at how the widening would take place. So appreciate the
Yes, sir.
question. Recognize you're not at that stage.
Sure, and I don't know if this helps, but the concept that I've been working on and developing, the residences don't start at the road. They start quite a ways off the road, largely because of, I want to be very cautious about the ponds that are there and the preservation of all of that. And quite honestly, I think it's a really pretty stretch of road. And so with the residences not starting until much further back, I would presume that there would be, if that wanted to be discussed further down the road, there's nothing in my plan that puts anything there that would prohibit that.
Thank you.
Well,
I'm not trying to put you on the
I've got
spot.
Alderman Peterson.
We already knew, just let me interject this if you don't mind, Mr. Mayor. We already knew that when Thales Academy came to us, we were requiring turn lanes, widening of that stretch, and shoulders in a turn lane. And also refiguring the entrance and exit of the church.
Thank you. Alderman Peterson.
Could we bring up the very last thing, which is the concept? Because I couldn't figure out, I mean, I drove out there. I can't figure out, well, where is that on that big one that we just showed? I mean.
So the church, oh, sorry. So the church is right here. If you look on the screen, I'm kind of circling it.
Wait, show it.
The church is right here.
You can look at this one.
No,
Alderman.
we can't see, oh, okay, we can see.
Yeah. This is the church. And so the portion that I can't really highlight it, but the portion that we're looking at is, if you follow the mouse, it's kind of this like odd rectangle into a bigger rectangle down to Clovercroft. And that's where the map was referring to.
And so if we went back to the one that we were just, the one that we were just looking at, could you point that?
So I can show you.
Okay, yes, on that one. Yeah.
Correct. So the church, this is an older aerial, but the church, I believe, is on this property over here.
Right there.
And then this is the property that would be considered for the 10 lots.
And if you look to the left of that,
But I'm
That's
looking, okay, so
96.
where would that road that was showing up on there, where would it be?
The road for the development itself, it would run, I mean, again, we haven't delved into the exact location of where the road would be, but based off of
I'd rather us stick to,
Well, I mean, I'd like to
yeah,
know
nobody
if they-
knows.
no-
She
no,
just said that not until he brings some plans forward will all that be worked out. So do we want to bring this forward to consider annexation, initiating that process, or do we not want to do that? That's what I'd like you to address.
Well, but as I say, I can't put together that and the one,
So the road would go along the west there. This is the road. My cursor's on it. And it would end in essentially what
I
would
got
be
you.
a roundabout
Right.
until, or if ever there was more development this way, that way,
Yeah,
that they would have a stub.
Yes, ma'am, you can come up here and sit down. We're going to make an exception, let
Thank
you
you so
say
much.
something very, very quickly.
Yes, I shall. Hi, Rob. How are you? Hi, Barb.
Oh, hi, Barb. Nice to meet you.
Press the green button.
I'm sorry. I'll learn it. You think I'd know how to do that? So I just wanted to say a couple things.
Can you say your name?
Oh,
and
I'm
address
sorry.
really quick?
Barb Kramer, and I live on John Williams Road. And you were talking about being close to the city limits. I just wanted you all to know that if you look at the design there, everything to the left there is part of a neighborhood conservation district. It will never be in the city. So you can't say the city's coming there. And then if you look to the right of that property and behind it, that's where we all live. And we also are in the county and don't care to be into the city. So even though the city says it's close to the city limits, the fact is the neighborhood district will be there. The Boyds are right on the left of that, their historic home. And then the Century Farm is right behind that. So it's not like the city this is going, how do I explain it? Oh, and the other thing is he was talking about the 17 acres. Only 10 of that is buildable. That's why, because the rest of it is too low in water. So you can say 17 acres, only 10 houses, but you can't build on a lot of that property. And that's why he needs some of the church property, because he can't build much on what he's got. I just wanted to add that.
Anybody else want
So
to?
you're next to John Williams?
Yes, yes, yeah.
Any other comments about initiating the process of annexation?
Mr. Mayor, do you mind if I add something really quick?
Go
Just
ahead.
for your reference. If you decide to move forward with it and he does pursue a planned district, planned development, he will have to provide open space. So Ms. Kramer referencing the portion of the land that is maybe unbuildable, he's working to move towards being able to meet the guidelines of a planned district if you guys so choose to move it forward. So I just wanted to remind you of that.
One final comment. I did hear a comment about the city buying some property to do some road improvements. That won't pass unanimously at the board. That will not pass unanimously at the board. Because I'm not going to vote for that, and that's not something we do anyway. So that we don't develop roads, and we don't do improvements in front of developments. So
And if I can say one other thing, the property from there to Highway 96 is all county, the neighborhood conservation district. So they won't be doing it to there. So just to throw that in.
All right, we need to move forward.
Thank you very much for letting me
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next time, throw out a card, please.
Yes, sir. I'm sorry.
Okay, next is ordinance 2023-41, an ordinance to amend Chapter 4, Title 16 of the Franklin Municipal Code concerning road impact fees.
We have some folks going up to present to you. This is the road impact fee discussion we've been having for some time. And it is set up for a second reading, had been deferred to the October 22nd meeting. So this will be on your agenda in 2 weeks. But we wanted to use some work session time tonight to review some additional modeling and updates that we've done based on the discussion we've heard over the last month or so. We've had an additional dialogue with the development community as well. So what we want to run through for you tonight is modeling our budget and performance team. Michael and Catherine have worked on to give you a sense of the relative financial impact of looking at a phase-in, especially over 3 years, 4 years, or 5 years, and of grandfathering periods that might be associated with that as well, of 5 years, 8 years, and 10 years. These are all numbers we heard you all discuss several weeks ago and have tried to put some at least model to it to give you at least a relative measuring stick comparing them to one another. I think we also did run just a straight 5-year phase-in without grandfathering, to just give you that as context. As we go through these, I do want to touch on 3 things that are common components that we are assuming or that we think is a part of the way forward. One is an effort to define impact fees and impact fee schedules over multiple years. We're looking at a 3 to 5 year period that those fees would be defined so that the development community can know what to expect over a period of time. This does also, though, include an indexing so that there is an annual kind of inflationary adjustment based on a appropriate index fund or index fee, or to tie the fee to indexing in terms of so we stay up with inflationary impacts. And then finally, one of the key things that we have heard about is challenges with cash flow, having all these fees due at the permit stage. So what we have proposed is moving towards a process that is 25% at permit and 75% paid, the remaining 75% paid at the final inspection stage. So this provides for the ability to spread that out from a cash flow standpoint over the life of the project, and think that's a good move forward. And we would look to implement that, not just with road impact fees, but look at how we implement that with all impact fees as we move forward. So those are 3 kind of common components that we would suggest are included whatever direction you provide in terms of the implementation and grandfathering components.
Yeah, I didn't hear you say grandfathering when you were talking.
That's what we're going to run through. Is we also ran grandfathering at a 5-year, an 8-year, and a 10-year option for each of the phase-in options. So you look at a phase-in as one component, and we ran that at 3, 4, and 5, and then grandfathering. Other options within grandfathering, 5 years, 8 years, 10 years. So I'll have Michael and Catherine walk you through this and be glad to answer any other questions. But and what we're really looking for from you is there some consensus about how you'd like to shape this so what we bring to you on the 22nd reflects your guidance? So.
And I would suggest maybe be prepared to make some comment where you're leaning, because I'm going to go down the line.
Or even if you want us to say, I'd like to see these 2 options and hone in on something. We just need some sense of where the board is collectively on this to help us shape what you consider.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. My name is Michael Walters-Young, your Chief Budget and Performance Officer. With me is Catherine Harrelson, our Development Services Operations Analyst. As Eric said, we will just do a quick recap of where we were to get to where we are. So we were before you 4 weeks ago on September 10th. We presented our initial financial review of Ordinance 2023-41. If you will remember, we compared 5 years of actual collections, fiscal 19 through 23, audited financials every year in the Road Impact Fund, which averaged about $8.35 million a year. We then took a look at what the full implementation of those fees would be, and that average on those for those 5 years would have increased it to $21.25 million collected per year. We also presented in front of you a series of potential phase-in options at 2, 3, 4, and 5 years, as well as looking at grandfathering those existing possibilities. So both kind of a 5 and a 10-year. This chart on the screen is figure 3 from the memo we presented a month ago, and it shows you what the impacts would be: a 2-year phase-in, a 3-year, a 4-year, and a 5-year. Now, what we took away from your meeting 4 weeks ago was not so much on full implementation, not so much on 2 years, but look again at 3, 4, and 5. And grandfathering anything above 10 years seemed a bit too long. 15 was not something that we heard you say that you wanted to see again. So therefore, as Eric indicated, tonight you were presented with 10 additional scenarios. Now, they all have 2 variables pretty much within them. The first variable is we will do the phase-in either over 3 years, 4 years, or 5 years. Grandfathering will be assumed at either 5 years, 8 years, or 10 years. Future development activity assumes the same as the previous 5 years of audited development activity. And I'm going to touch on that point as I get to the end of my presentation. And as grandfathered projects are built, the amount or ratio of grandfathered projects remaining to new projects that would apply under the new fee schedule is proportionally decreasing. Because the idea is you'd build them, they'd get built, then the new projects would get larger and larger in terms of a proportional share of what you're collecting in fees. I'm not going to read all of those because, again, I just kind of said it. The one thing I will say is that there is a scenario J, or the 10th scenario, which is based upon a proposal from the development community that was submitted about a week and a half ago. Alderman?
It's the one that says new.
There's a, presentation that
one.
says new.
I think it's the third one listed.
Won't help her find it.
There are 3 attachments there's 15 items which are in Civic Clerk
15
because we tried to
attachments, 'cause
bind
there's a lot of
them
history.
together with all the history. But the newest items is the presentation, the memo, and the proposal from the development community dated Friday, September 27th, excuse me.
I'm just disappointed there wasn't a K.
Mayor, there can be.
There
if you all
was.
would like.
You'll let me too.
Yeah.
Okay, keep
Catherine.
on. I think
So-
she's got it.
The first thing we wanted to show you on the screen is what happens for each phase-in, the total amount of revenue collected over the 10-year period. For each of the 3 options, a 3-year phase-in, a 4-year phase-in, and a 5-year phase-in. If there is no grandfathering. These amounts become the new maximum available level of revenue in each of the scenarios. So $232.5 million under the 3-year phase-in, $227.7 in the 4-year phase-in, and $203.7 in the 5-year phase-in. Okay? That is the maximum that we would forecast you could receive should you choose not to implement grandfathering. Scenarios A, B, and C are the 3-year phase-ins that assume grandfathering at 5, 8, and 10 years respectively. So the impact of grandfathering in a 3-year phase-in, if you have it be in place for 5 years, would be roughly $21 million in fewer collections. 8-year grandfathering would be 37.3, and 10 years of grandfathering would be approximately $39.15 million in less revenue collected by the city of Franklin. Now you'll note that is not proportional because you've got 2 things at play here. You have the fact that you've got grandfathering for various amounts of time, but also grandfathering and new projects are changing, right? So that the amount of grandfather projects that are left by the time you get to an 8th, 9th, and 10th year is only 5 to 10% of the total pie. So it's less of a loss, if you will, in the later years because there's less of those projects assumed to be in existence anyway. You'll see that on the next slide and the slide after. This is the 4-year phase in at 5, 8, and 10 years of grandfathering. Similar numbers. 19 million in would be the impact of grandfathering for a 4-year phase in. 32.8 million would be the impact of grandfathering for 8 years into the 4-year phase in, and 37.3 million for 10 years of grandfathering. And then finally, 5-year phase-ins, you would have an $11.6 million impact of grandfathering. If a 5-year grandfathering is applied in the 5-year phase-in, say that 5 times fast, literally, 22.6 million impact of grandfathering under the 5-year phase-in, and 25.1 million if you do 10 years of grandfathering. There's one additional scenario that we ran, and that was provided by the development community on September 27th. There's a couple of assumptions that we've made that differ from the memo as it was proposed. The first is grandfathering. The proposal, and this is available as your third attachment in Civic Clerk this evening, grandfathering, they've requested to be based upon the vesting dates shown on the attached schedule in their memo provided by the City of Franklin. Those vary at very much different dates. Some, they're project by project, some go until 2038, some get done 10 years sooner. We've just kept the 10-year grandfathering as the assumption in this financial scenario for simplicity's sake. Is it a swag? Yes, it is, but it is the biggest window of grandfathering that we're doing in all of our other financial scenarios and makes for easier comparisons. The major difference here is the phase-in. They've requested a 5-year phase-in as well, but it would be 10% in year 1, 25% in year 2, 40% in year 3, 70% in year 4, and then 100% or full implementation in year 5. The 3, 4, and 5-year scenarios that staff put together are all basically doing even distributions, a third, a third, a third, a quarter, 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 or 20%, 20%, et cetera. And then finally, there is an indexing assumption of 5% assumed throughout this exercise in all scenarios. They proposed tying it to a particular bituminous concrete index from TDOT, which we've talked about, and we could certainly look at doing that for indexing should the board agree. There are other considerations in the memo that are not part of the financial analysis. Those include requests regarding the timing of fee calculations, development milestones, and the timing of payments. The impact of scenario J would be $32.9 million in less revenue than you would receive otherwise if you do a 5-year phase-in, or a total of $170.8 million. So to summarize, if you do no grandfathering, 3, 4, or 5-year phase-ins on the screen, you can see there's a difference of about $28.8 million between your 3-year and your 5-year. If you do grandfathering, it really depends upon which iteration and variation you want to go for. But there's, again, this a high of $232.5 million and a low of $170.8 million with the 10-year grandfathering as proposed by the development community. So there's a difference in all of these scenarios of roughly $60 million. Now, as Eric said, we did meet with the development community a week ago today. One of the questions that was raised, it's been raised in our previous meetings with you. We are assuming development activity remaining the same. And we fully understand that market forces or the impacts of this fee increase may result in certain projects not being as viable or not the math not working. What I can tell you is there is no way for us to tell you what that impact is going to be. We acknowledge that it certainly could happen, but I can't, there's no rubric, there's no guidance within the industry to tell you it would be 10% or 20%. I can tell you that historically, when you've raised fee increases, or you've increased fees in the past in this community, development activity has continued. Have you tried to raise fees at the level that this is proposing? No. So again, just laying out there the facts that are available to you. Finally, we had a conversation about impacts of property taxes and impacts of sales taxes. Can you quantify what those are if projects do not go forward? And the answer there is no as well. Partially because the amount of property tax that is raised in this community is actually quite small compared to the overall level of funding government services. The total amount of property tax that's raised in the city of Franklin for fiscal '25 is roughly $25 million. You can see in previous slides, full implementation could raise $21.2 million in road impact fees alone. The second thing I'll say about sales tax that makes it very difficult to try to forecast the impact of is increasingly sales are generated not just, of course, in brick and mortar, but online. And the city of Franklin collects ample sales tax from a variety of sources, local and state shared, but that proportionate share increasingly comes from online distributions. So the impact of a restaurant or a particular business is not as simple as simply dividing the number of people or what that business might be from that place. With that, Mr. Stuckey?
We really turn it over for questions or feedback or just guidance overall on where you want to go. Again, we're trying to provide you with something that is helpful on the 22nd in terms of your consideration. And I appreciate the work that our budget and performance team has done to at least try to provide you some relative measure of how these options may impact, at least comparing to, gives you at least a good comparison to one another of their relative impact. So we're glad to stand for any questions or discussion you'd like to have. Mayor probably has some folks who want to speak to it as well.
Well, I do have three speaker cards, but I think I would prefer to start right here and go around and get some guidance for staff who's been asking for guidance. So I'm going to say that I think the grandfathering should occur over 5 years in equal increments. I would phase it in over 4 years, 25% per year. I would index it. And lastly, I would agree that 25% at permitting and then 75% at final inspection.
With all the road projects that we've got that we look at, the CIP program, I don't expect the road impact fees to pay for all of those, but I do expect for them to pay a fair share, whatever that is. I think as we sit up here and we're elected, we can call something fair and it might not be. I think what the mayor said is probably generous as far as what I've looked at. But I would do the 3-year phase in or possibly 4-year phase in, but no grandfathering on that. I don't think that money that was collected, that's projected on that board up there, even adequately covers what we've got in the capital improvements projects for the next 10 years as we look forward. And when I look out, I see, I mean, there's literally traffic everywhere now. I mean, it just doesn't matter hardly where it is, but it is everywhere. So I think we've got a real issue, and whenever time anybody comes before us here, first thing they'll say is traffic. So I'm looking at a 3-year phase in, 4-year phase in, no grandfathering.
Alderman Potts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, first, I just want to start with thanks to our budget performance team members. And not only thanks for us, but I also want to thank all the meetings that I've received emails on or taken telephone calls on. Everybody from the development community has complimented the city team members that have been involved in this process the entire way. They said that there is no other city that they know of or that they have experienced where the city has come to the table as willingly and in partnership as what we have. So again, tip of the hat to everybody involved here. As I looked at this, I I started in from day one on a 5-year phase-in. And this before we ever started talking about grandfathering. I still have in my head a 5-year phase-in with scenario G with a 5-year grandfathering approach. As I look at that, I did this over the weekend. I started looking at scenario F and scenario E, and that's the 4-year phase-in with 8-year or 4-year phase-in with 10-year. And the one that Mayor Moore referenced was scenario E, which is the 4-year phase-in with the, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Mayor, it was 5-year, 5-year, that was D. So as I started looking at this, I started looking at the revenue piece of this, and the part I keep coming back to is I know that we have an opportunity here within the city of this is not a money grab. This is making a very prudent approach on what we're trying to do. I want to make sure that we've got adequate allowances for doing grandfathering. So when I'm looking at this, I'm really thinking about small business, and the part I'm thinking about is the small business developers that don't have deep pockets, that can't withstand not having grandfathering or additional financing, whatever it might be, like some of the larger developers with deeper pockets. So that's why I'm supporting the 5-year phase-in. And I look at scenario G, which is 5-year grandfathering. So that's where I'm at. I could also look at scenario F as well. So,
Alderman
Eric?
Peterson.
Well, first of all, let me say that, whenever you're talking about this, you're planning to raise a lot more money than we have been raising. One of the things that I want to ask, and I haven't seen this, I would like for us to look back at how much has been developed in the last 2 or 3 years and see, because we have not had, any new apartments, is that right?
We did not in 2023, but I will be back in 2 weeks with your development activity report. And this year in 2024, we have.
Okay.
Yes.
But I still would like to look at that line, because we have a lot of, we have a great number of units that have been, and I don't mean just residential. We have a lot of units that have been approved. I mean, a lot, but they have not been built.
So where are you leaning as far as scenarios? Alderman Peterson?
I would be leaning to the 5-year phase-in. But as I say, that is talking still about a lot of money that people who are trying to build things would have to pay. And again, not all of it up front, because we were talking about 25% and then, adding the later thing. I would probably, I would probably go with the 10-year grandfathering, because as I say, we have, 11,000, thank you, 11,000 different things that we have approved that, haven't been built at all. So I guess I would say the 5-year phase-in and the 10-year grandfathering. And I'm still concerned.
Thank you, Ken. I have a couple. Thank you, Mayor. I have a couple questions, maybe if I can. There was reference to the timing of the payment, and I've seen it said that it's due at closing. I just would like to note that let's not do it at closing.
Yeah.
Let's give ourselves a buffer and what you bring back
Yes,
to us, either for multifamily, single family, or commercial.
Yeah,
Let's find a.
Yeah, that was in the developer proposal, the development community proposal. We are much more in what we continue to advocate for is the shift to the 25% at permit and 75% at final inspection. Our relationship is with the developer. It is not with an individual homeowner or an individual tenant in a property. It just administratively and just the way this had worked, I would just strongly recommend we look at that 2575. I think it addresses the broader issue of cash flow.
Sure.
And so that's where we are in terms of a pretty strong staff recommendation on that aspect.
So I would be fully behind that as far as when we would collect. I think the three areas that I want to see us focus on is to encourage projects to come forward, not just from concepts, but actually to be built projects. Because while it is, Michael, you're exactly right, incredibly difficult to forecast what the revenue from these properties may be. The incentive, I think, is to get these properties out of the ground so the revenue can begin flowing in the near term, not the far term. The second objective here is to clearly communicate the new cost to those who are in our development community so that you know what the future looks like for you. And then the third would be to preserve, and this is important, preserve Franklin as a place where development can happen. And I worry if we go too aggressively at some of these projects that are already on the books effectively, maybe not in cost, but in scope, that we kill some of those. And so I think, Ken, to be a little bit more clear and a little bit more direct, I'm probably going to lean more toward the phase-in being less long and the grandfathering probably being in a middle space. So probably scenario E, a 4-year phase-in. And then another question for staff, when would we look at this beginning? Obviously, the board gets to make this decision, but January of 25? And so is that, Eric, you breathed a little bit there.
We won't make this decision till November. So I think, in terms of final votes. So I think that's something you need to look at. We wrote January when this was on in April. So I think that's something for you to think about and weigh in on. That is a very short implementation time compared to what we normally do. To be fair, probably a July 1 is maybe better, but, just in terms of lead time for folks. But you get to make the call. It's written as January 1 because this started back in the spring.
Appreciate the additional color. That may influence maybe some of my colleagues' scenario choice because we've effectively given the development community another 8 months if we go in, or maybe even 9 months if you go in July. So I would like to see a 4-year, with my 4-year being full implementation by the year 2028, January 2028. That was for phase-in and then grandfathering 8 years.
Alderman Berger.
Well, those are all really compelling arguments. I think I've heard, totally agree with some of those thoughts and thinking, Greg and Ann behind there, Jason as well. I think I definitely want to see some, I'm honestly, Ann, your comments were spot on because we've not been in this place before. And Michael, you said it just right, we've never been here. We've said before, oh, well, they'll always build, things get high, things get, but we're in a culture that's so foreign to us. We've never really actually been down this road before. We don't know where this country is going in the next year. And I think we could be saying goodbye to a lot of these people in their developments. And again, I think I said when I'm looking at these scenarios, my bottom line is I don't want to see bulldozed fields sitting there with all the trees cut down and dirt sitting there for year after year after year after year after year and development not happening. That is extremely, that is a great possibility. We don't have a crystal ball, so we don't know what next year's going to bring. We don't know after November what this is going to bring. We don't know where we're going. We're sitting here making decisions today for phasing in and grandfathering and doing all this stuff, and we don't have that crystal ball. So in a way, I feel like I'm flying by the seat of my pants on this thing. But logic tells me, look at what's happening, look at the developments, look at the financial institutions, the economy, the risk takers, everything piled into one. And these comments to me are, I think you're right on. Greg, you have excellent comments, but Ann, I think we have to definitely go with grandfathering for 10 years. Or may not be really healthy for us in the long run. Because we have so many projects started and we have people at the verge of jumping off on these projects right now. So I would probably say my bottom line would probably be with Ann's. Phase in 5, grandfather 10. I could go with phase in 4, give or take. But I would say if I have to give to phase in 4, I'll do that. But I'll go with Ann's on phase in 5 and grandfathering 10, because I think those are extremely solid reasons you all presented, and I would just ditto those. Thanks.
Alderman Vega.
Can you help me, where you're throwing around grandfather, like everyone is on the same page of what grandfathering is. So I want to make sure that I understand it, or maybe I'm just the only one. When you say grandfathering, this is 8 years in addition to, like, so starting January, let's just use January 1 because it's calendar years. 8 years. So no matter where they are, if someone is at year, this is where I think there's a bit of something at play, because where the development professional's proposal has some merit is that you've got some who have their vesting period coming with, let's just say we chose 8 years. Their vesting period is coming to an end before 8 years. And so, well, no, undoubtedly, I'm looking at the list right now.
But vesting periods can be extended, right?
Yeah, but the 15, I'm talking about
Okay.
the 15-year,
Yeah.
the 15-year by state law period, which is what I'm assuming is kind of the end of the, I mean, probably the end of the road for, or maybe it's not, I don't know, but let's just use that. So it's 8 years or 10 years or 5 years from January 1st. We're just giving everyone 5 years regardless of their vesting schedule. I think the thing I like about their proposal is that it's, if I'm not misunderstanding it, it's tied, the vesting is, or the grandfathering is tied to the vesting, the 15-year vesting period. Am I getting that right?
Yeah, you end up with a separate schedule for every development.
Well, there's only 30 of them or something. I mean, it's not
That's
like,
30 developments with their own
but this is,
schedule.
but I think we're leaving a lot of money on the table, quite frankly. And I think that's what we need to look at.
I don't know that that's true because vesting can be extended beyond, I mean, you have some at 2038.
I'm talking about the
It could
15
be
year.
indefinite.
No, it would not be indefinite.
Well, we've seen vesting periods extended time and time again. So you have to look at how you're going to approach that. You may need some more policy guidance on that component as well.
If we choose 8-year vesting or 10-year,
Grandfathering, you mean?
grandfather, excuse
Yeah,
me.
yeah.
8-10-year grandfathering, then I guess the question is, how are we going to handle then when one comes up for vesting, they're still grandfathered in our fee schedule, and we're just gonna, like, why don't you just tie it to the 15-year vesting of when it expires? I think you're gonna have a lot more that trigger the new fees if you keep it with the original 15-year vesting period as the maximum limit. There would be there would be some accounting.
Yes, that is.
Administratively, it is
Administratively.
very difficult.
You're smart.
After listening and being involved with the development professionals and yourselves, I prefer, and we prefer to talk about entitlement. Because, for example, you had a project today that previously that wanted to be extended their vesting. Had it expired, and you've implemented one of these scenarios, they would be subject to the post-January 2025 fees. But you elected to recommend approval, and that'll be on a future agenda, which means now you're extending the vesting for a couple years, which then really grandfathers them. And that's something that we haven't talked about, but it'll be part of future requests for vesting extensions of the implications associated with what fee schedule they're going to be applicable to.
And you've hit it on the head, is like, why don't we tie it to the original 15-year period I'm not going to keep extending for 18 years or 22 years. I mean, does that make sense? Is what I'm saying?
It does.
Because I don't want to have to sit in front of a person that their development does not meet Envision Franklin, but if we do not extend their vesting period, it's going to be even more than having to go back through and get approvals. It's going to be that plus 300% more fees. Like that, I don't like that being on.
There
I'd
is
rather have
merit.
just automatic triggers.
There is merit, but there's two things that, or I think Alderman Caesar said it. If the intent here is to make the fees predictable, which we're going to do by publishing a schedule for 5 years in advance for both the grandfather and the new fees, and then add a year subsequently to that. And trying to move those projects forward, make that very predictable. Now, what we just talked about, Alderman Baggett, the administrative burden put on with various types of projects to understand where they are. We haven't evaluated that and the implementation. So, you know, where these projects fall, that we can also provide an estimate of what the development fees will be for any particular project or building. And it's something that actually Catherine and our team has been doing for a number of years, that when a project is getting ready to make a submittal and work in more earnest on the plans, we provide an estimate of all the development fees, inclusive of county schools, facilities, taxes, planning fees, inspection fees. So make sure that those investing in our community have a fair understanding what those fees are. And there's work when we do that. We need to evaluate whether it makes it a little bit more administratively burdensome that we haven't done until we have some more firm direction.
If it takes us having one person or half a person looking at this and it allows us to capture more revenue, and they've brought up the idea of it. I'm just asking you all to look into it. Just look into it, and maybe your gut says
I'm just
it's not
looking at
more
the
money.
dates, and there's 2 in 29. Everything else is in the 2030s, 31, 36, 38. I mean, it's not like a bunch of them are coming up in the next 3 or 4 years.
fair.
When you look at a 5-year vesting, there's only maybe one that would fall in that range. So if your concern is grandfathering being too generous, you might want to look at the term on grandfathering as opposed to this, which is administratively complex.
Okay.
And there's really, I'm just looking at these dates. I see 2 in 29. Everything else is 31, 35, 34, 38. There's a couple 30s. So you might have a couple that save you, but there are a lot of them that will go far beyond.
I understand. I want to move
5
on
or
because I
8.
know you got, but I want to
Yeah,
do
I
the.
want to go on because I'd like to hear what you.
But this is.
I understand. I'm just trying to.
I'm
push you
ready.
just a little bit
I'm
off
ready
the
to get. I'm ready to give you the thing. This is important. This
It
is
is.
important
It
though.
is.
Oh, absolutely.
If you
We've been
would- if
talking
you
about it
would,
for
though-
months and months, so let's
One
fix
request on that last. If you'll put how many would fall into 5, 8, and 10 of those on the list. I am kind of curious because I could do it if I had a spreadsheet in front of me. How many of those are 5, 8, and 10? It just would help me see which ones are. All right. I'm more in line with, depending on what I see there, but I think I'm definitely more in line with the what was the E and the G. No, E and the E and the F. Sorry, I've had my E and F, E and G. There's still some confusion, but E is where I'm most likely. That's 4-year phase, 8-year grandfather. I'd be open to the 10-year grandfather. Last thing, paid at final inspection. I think that's a good thing. Continue though dialogue. I think there may be some desires from the development community that I think we're hitting it on the 75%, but on residential as well. I know it's 25, 75 on residential as well. All right, that's it. E, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Alderman Baggett. Alderman Blanton.
Wow. So this is also very confusing. But what I will tell you is Yes, thank you all for all this. I'm glad it's your job, not mine. Also, thank you to the development community because you are engaged, you are obviously on the hook, and not every town does this. I will say to me that it's incredibly important that these companies have done their pro formas, and now all of a sudden we're coming in the middle of it, whatever phase that is, and upsetting the apple cart. Personally, I don't think going back to 2019 and saying what we could have captured it's a moot point. We could have, should have, would have, we didn't. So I just thank you, but going back and going, oh, if we'd done this, it's moot.
And it was only meant to be a relative measure. We
I
aren't
know.
saying we missed it.
But I
We're
think
just
that it
saying
builds these
what it would have
numbers
been.
and it makes these impressions of like we're behind the eight ball. We'll never be ahead. And part of that's TDOT's fault. Part of that is we're a very desirable place to live. And I do fear that all of this hard work of building consensus and relationship and vision, Franklin, and all this stuff is all going to be for naught if we do not find a way to work to make things actually be built. We have very little in my lifetime. I say little, for some of you it's like expansive. The developable land is predominantly on the east side of our community. We all know that. So we kind of know what's left. We know where our UGB is now. So those are things that I think about. So I started in on E, but then I got to I. And what I will say is, when we asked for them to tell us what they need and they came up with J, I would like to get as close to that as possible because we're asking what the opinions are and they're the ones that are going to build it or not build it. And they know what they need to be able to make it. So I'm going to settle at I, but I could be encouraged to go J. 2575, 5% index. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Peterson, you want to make a point?
I just want-
Because I've got three speakers.
That's right. If you go back to page 4, and because something was just mentioned about how much the fees would have been if they had full implementation of this, go back there and you'll see that, like in 2019, they would have tripled. In other words, going from 7 million to 24 million. And I mean, every one of these did so much, would have cost so much more just in the last, 4 years? If we had implemented this. And I'm not sure that we should make that big a change, period.
And lastly, we are too reliant on a fee system. We're too reliant on fee systems.
Okay, I've got Mr. Canals and Rachel Blackhurst and Alex Chambers, 2 minutes each, please.
Good evening. I'm Alec Chambers with Highwoods Properties. I want to start off again, same comment as everybody else. Thank you to the city staff and the board. We've also, and the development community, we spent a ton of time on this. We've been working over this for over a year. And we've been all over the board trying to get something. It's a hard problem to solve. I do want to start with the Hill property that y'all were discussing earlier. You were asking that as an example. Can you go back up to that slide you just had up? Or I'll just show you.
I just want you to make your public comment, please.
Okay, the 8 million, roughly the impact fees were 800,000. So 8 million goes to 21 million, so 800,000 goes to 2.1 million. That's a $1.3 million increase, 257%. So your $5.1 million problem at the Hill just became $6.5 million. For our property, Ovation, which is a very large project, we're going from 14 million to 36 million. So that's a $22 million increase. That's half what we've paid for the land. And that's on top of the increased cost from more stringent bioretention regulations, stormwater increase, cost increases, sewer increases, parking increases, construction costs increases, and financing costs. So it's, how did y'all get to $5 million in that project? It's the same way we got here. I mean, it's a very hard thing to do. On the flip side, we talked about what's the economic benefit of these projects. Y'all asked for this, it took us forever to get it done. We did an economic analysis for Ovation, which fortunately includes 400,000 square feet of retail, which is the best income producer for the city. And I've got this study, and I don't want to just give it to y'all because it becomes public record, but I'd be glad to meet with any of y'all to talk about it. But the annual increase in taxes to the city is $14 million. 11 of that is retail sales tax, or some version of that. There's hotel motel tax in there, and then a little bit of it is property tax. So that's one project doing $14 million of recurring income every single year, and versus a $22 million one-time increase that can be, might stop us. And, even if it delays us a year, you get 22, you just lost 14. That's pretty easy math. That's the annual. And I'm going to be glad to sit down with y'all. We had younger associates do it. They're kind of the gold standard in Tennessee for these types of analyses. So my request is, on the increases, you start low. And Mayor, when you say a 25% increase, that's 25% of the unrealized revenue. That's actually a 50% increase in the actual impact fee on January 1st. So, let's be mindful of that. Or January of 2026. Okay. I've asked do the phase-in over as long a period as possible to give those of us who have invested in the community a chance to catch up. We understand there's going to be increases. Let us get ahead of it and start the recurring income rather than the one-time. Be reasonable in the grandfathering. And I do want to mention one nuance that was in the developer proposal, that it's not just the vesting schedule. It's also projects that are base zoning that have done significant infrastructure. That's half of Ovation. That's Meridian. So there are lots of projects that are zoned that are not going to be clear on that vesting schedule. But within that, we did say, make that a 5-year. So you have a window into how long that would last. And I think that's all I wanted to say. Thank y'all so much.
Okay. Hi again. Yes, thank you to the city, and apologies. We tried to herd everyone together and come up with a 10th scenario for you, just even it out, but couldn't get it together in time. But just to echo a lot of what Alex said, we appreciate all the consideration on grandfathering and phase-in. One thing I would love to note that was in our proposal too is just if we could look at this as setting a standard for other future impact fee increases. We would love to, for all of our sake, not to have 6 months of conversation to decide on grandfathering again. So think about a standard. And as Alec mentioned, we did do an economic impact assessment and would love to throw some of those other numbers out to you. He talked about their specific project, but for other projects that have been very vocal in this room, hotel, you're looking at annual contribution of about $3.5 million, office, $4 million a year, and multifamily, $169,000 a year. $169,000 a year. And again, if you're just looking at the projects that have been here and very vocal on this fee increase combined, you're looking at about $38 million a year that they would all be contributing tax-wise. So as we're making these decisions, I hope you'll take those numbers into account. Thank you.
Mr. Canals.
I'll echo the thank you that everyone has said. We really do appreciate having a seat at the table and be part of this discussion. Just thanks to each of you for making it a point to do that for us, and we really appreciate that, though. I want to open by letting you know Glenn McGee would have liked to have been here. He's recovering from COVID. He really wanted to speak to you and address you tonight. He's on the good end of his recovery. He should be back with us in a day or two, but I did want to say that. I was going to say a lot about what Alex said in a little bit, and that was talking about sales tax revenues. And yeah, I believe somewhere near 85% of your revenue that you have annually for operating the city is sales tax revenue. And that comes from the development community being able to continue to develop quality products and collect sales tax. And so when you're talking about the hotel uses and the restaurant uses and the retail uses and all those things, that's really the creator of your revenue today, and it's going to continue to be the creator of your revenue as long as development can keep taking place. We did a spreadsheet, and we'd be happy to meet with you and go over that as well individually, but it just kind of used simple uses. And we looked at some things that are already in the community, like the Chipotle that we did. We looked at the Perry's that's in North McEwen. We've looked at hotels, retail shopping centers, multifamily, and some entertainment, and like a mixed-use entertainment, dining, and the recreation facility. We actually just met with a company last week, an out-of-state company, wants to come to Franklin, and they had such a facility. It's about 100,000 square foot facility. And we did look at them, look at what they've done in another location. It'll be something the community would love to have. In that location, and what they just did, the impact fees that they're paying for road impact fees, but all of their impact fees, I should say, are $654,819. Here, just the road impact fees, fully integrated, well, the road impact fees in today's schedule would be $1,322,000. That doesn't count the water or sewer or other impact fees or other permit fees or other things. Fully implemented, that would be $3,268,000. And it's almost, if not already, cost prohibitive to bring that use to this, to our site. I've developed best I counted, 36 states in my career, and I've developed in Franklin since 1997. Ann and I were friends when she was on Planning Commission before being on the BOMA, learning how to develop here. Love this community. I love the development of this community. I know you all love this community, and a lot of people want to come to this community. As the community grows, if we don't grow the services, the restaurants, the retail, and all the things that are going to bring in sales tax dollars here, then the community is going to ultimately falter one day. May not be in my development lifetime, may not be in my lifetime. I don't know, but it could be in the next 5 years. I just want to point that out because it's a big decision as you continue to raise fees and don't look for other alternatives. I've urged you to look at other alternatives. I still think you need to look at other alternatives, but special tax districts, whether it's some increases in your property taxes. I know that's a hard thing to talk about, but I'm just going to throw it out there again. I would hate to see development come to a halt one day because of continued raised impact fees and other fees. Thank you for your time.
Okay, item 7 is ordinance 2024-28 to establish a no parking anytime zone along the southerly extents and around the cul-de-sac of Desert Court. Any questions about that?
No.
Item 8 is City of Franklin Contract 2022-0114 with Dement Construction for Harlansdale Farm Multi-Use Path and Pedestrian Bridge for a cost increase of $67,688.70. No question about that one. Number 9 is contract with Trueland LLC, the Middle 8 PUD subdivision for a development agreement for amount not to exceed $375,000 for streetscape improvements per the approved Middle 8 development. Any question about that one? And then Alderman Baggett had spoken some last time to the commercial space options.
Don't let this become the last Alderman item that was kicked down the road for a year. But I do think we need a little more time to discuss that, maybe on another agenda.
Thank you. We're adjourned.